Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. It's the Comedians on Technology, People and Drugs podcast. Woo! And I'm Sam Joseph with my co-host here, Joe Vaughan, and today we're very lucky to have Eugene Dusauzay, who's joining us, and he has got some very exciting news. I mean, he's a very talented comedian. We are very excited to have him on the show. First up, Eugene, thanks so much for joining us. How's everything going today with you?
Everything's going good. I'm quite excited to be on this podcast. I've seen you around on the circuit, Sam, and this is my first introduction to actually doing like a podcast about comedy. I've done podcasts on and interviewed about other things about my life, which we'll probably even get to. But I'm really excited because this is something. Comedy is something I'm really passionate about. So I'm so glad to be here. And thank you for bring me on your lovely show.
So awesome. Tell us about your exciting news then.
Exciting news?
Yeah.
Exciting news. I mean, oh gosh. See, now I don't know if I was allowed to actually mention about my exciting news until it actually gets released. So this, what do they call it? What do they say? This is a first, yeah? But I've won it's called the NATY Awards, New Act of the Year award recently, which I am literally walking around sort of like, can't believe I actually pulled it off.
Awesome.
And that's one great thing that's happened to me recently.
So how long did, when you say new act, how long have you been in the game for?
Okay, this is the controversial question, right? Because I did 2 gigs before lockdown, a week before the first lockdown. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've been on stage, I've got to do this now. And I just rolled up my sleeves and then the world just stopped. So I literally started just before lockdown, literally a week before the Prime Minister locked us down. And then that was it. I was, as you know, years, 1 year, 2 years went by, but I started on the circuit like in January.
Right, and what were you doing? What sort of gigs were you doing at the start? Was it like kind of, the kind of bringer gigs, or how did you get into it?
Well, what happened, like before January, I couldn't get on the circuit because I wasn't on social media. So I didn't know how to actually book gigs or anything like that. But I performed at one club before January once a week. And that was where I sort of was honing my skills. I did that for about 2 months, possibly 3 months, probably about 2 months, just honing my skills to get ready to go on the circuit. And then when January came, then people was telling me, I didn't know how to book the gigs. I didn't know what it was all about. Now I'm just new to comedy. And literally I need an Instagram and a Facebook. And then I started all of those things. And then I started getting on a circuit.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear. And I get several questions occur to me in my mind. I'm going to go on the first one, which is, so did you do any Zoom gigs during the lockdown period? Or like, because you said you had that first 2 and then it was locked down. Were you doing any kind of performing during the lockdown period?
No, I literally, I saw the Zoom gigs and people, said to me, hey, why don't you do some Zoom gigs? And I because of my, the way I looked at comedy and the way I've always looked at comedy, you need the audience in front of you. And I think Zoom gigs are great. I think they're really good for people. I think they work for certain people. They feel more comfortable being around Zoom gigs, but I prefer an audience, like in front of me, a live audience. Not saying Zoom gigs are live audiences, it's just people in a room.
Basically. What was the club that you started doing? Roll back a bit before that. So you're thinking, are you a funny guy in real life? Is it like, did you feel like you had something to say? What was it kind of made you kind of do that first sort of step into the club? And what was the club and how did it start to go down?
Well, I've been a fan of comedy. Everybody loves comedy. It's very stand-up comedy. I mean, it's very hard to find people who don't like, and they're just strange if you don't like stand-up comedy, right? But when I was younger, I think when I saw like a naturally, cliche Richard Pryor, and I was just taken away with it as a kid. And I said, if there's anything I wanted to do, it would be stand-up comedy, but I never did it. So I went through my whole life not experienced doing stand-up. But I was a guy, I come from sort of like a working class, multicultural surroundings. But so I was one of those guys who was really, I love people chatting, talking, but I also like banter. I like to, I get very bored around people. So I'll make jokes, or if somebody says something a little bit off, I will illuminate something, not mocking them, but I will just like add, I might something creatively. And I've always been like that since I was young. But I'm the guy in the barbershop, young guy at the barbershop who's just cracking jokes and joking with the barbers. And sometimes when I used to go to the barbers, they used to team up against me. So someone would say something, and then I knew it was like they try to trap me into this sort of like rebuttal, debate with arguments. And I just had fun with it. And it would just sort of learn my skills by going back and forth and having fun with communication. But it took me years. I went through my whole life, and people said, oh, you should do stand-up. You should do stand-up. And I didn't do it until my friend got married a couple of years ago. And I was the second best man. And they thought I was a hired stand-up comedian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and because there was two best men, and the people he had, I didn't even know those people, to be honest with you. A lot of the people that were. So when I came on, it was an interesting one. A really great guy. He's an actor, actually. I came on, and I ended up doing 17 minutes,
wow,
which was bulletproof, and it went really well. It went really, really well, and I got goose pimples, and I was like, oh, I'm doing stand. I feel like a stand-up comedian, like a kid, like all the things that I've, since I was a kid wanting to do this. And I came off, and people were coming up to me and talking to me, and he said to me on his honeymoon, you need to do stand-up comedy. And then that was the impetus of me, embarking and saying, all right, I've got to do something. And that's why.
Had you written the material before? I mean, was it something, did you kind of improvise?
No, sorry, I'm interrupting you. I apologize. What I did was I wrote this is the thing, and I'm sure loads of people, when they do wedding speeches, I wrote bullet points. And I hadn't seen him because we spent time in America, like in the Bronx and in the States, like when we were younger. And I hadn't seen him for years. So I'm really and then he became an actor. I'm seeing him on TV and stuff. And I'm like, oh, there's my mate, my good friend, or whatever, anyway. And so, but I had missed so much of his life. It felt that's why he made me his second best man, It felt so strange trying to put a story together, but about the moments when we were younger, like in the States and being in the UK. So I literally got creative with the wedding speech, and I just illuminated some things about his personality, and I just got creative with it. But I done bullet points, and some of it was a little bit edgy, yeah? All right? And some of his family, Christians and stuff like that. But I just can't do I can't do the polite stories, then be nice. And I literally was like, okay. And I told it, I goes, I'm going to say this, say this, say this. And my partner said, no, you can't do that. There's no way you can do that. And one of my best friends said to me, I wouldn't say that, and I wouldn't say that. And I said, I know this is going to work. So when it came to the moment of the speech, I knew there was one point where I got to it. If they laugh at that, it was pretty dark. But I thought, if they laugh at that, I can do anything I want. And about 30 seconds in, I dropped that line, and I was like, great, I can do whatever I want. And I just had fun. It was great. It's cool. But I just had bullet points and just memories of things that we went through. But I'm a storyteller. I'm the guy at the barbecue yapping away, if you haven't gathered.
And then what club, whereabouts in London? I mean, I guess are you in London? Are you what part of London are you in? And did you sort of do a club in your local area, or how did you get into it?
Oh, when I got in the club, the first club, I'll tell you what happened. I was in Hampstead. I had somebody was in hospital, and I was at the hospital, and I went down. It was raining. I went down. This is 3 weeks before the lockdown. And I went down to go, and I need to go to the toilet outside Hampstead Royal Free, I think it's called. Came out, and it was raining, and I was like, I need to use the toilet. Ran into a little bar. It was called. They've closed down because of the pandemic. Ran to the bar to go use the toilet, and I went to go to the toilet. As I went there, they had stand-up comedy night. Yeah, tomorrow, like it was the next day, and I looked, and the guy was called Miles Crawford, I think he's called Miles Crawford. He was a black comedian who's on TV from the 90s. Anyway, I saw him, and there was some other comedians, and I went into the lady and I said to her, hey, can I use your toilet? And she goes, yeah. Because do you have stand-up comedy? And she said, yeah. So she goes tomorrow. She goes, do you do it? I go, well, I'm writing, and I'd love to do it. But anyway, long story short, I went there the next day, got there, it was sold out. And one of the comedians was walking through, I can't remember his name. He was walking through, and I said, hey, I watched you yesterday on YouTube, because I researched his name and see what stories that. And he said, oh, you watched me on YouTube? And comedians love attention, and somebody, hey, yeah. And then he goes like, hey, I'll tell you what. He goes, are you coming in? I goes, it's sold out. He goes, come in. I came in. There's these professional comedians sitting down in a booth. They put me by the DJ. I sat down. The room was packed out, and I got talking to this Miles Crawford. His name is, yeah. And I goes, oh, I've seen you on TV. And he said, oh yeah. I goes, and lovely guy. And anyway, he goes, do you like comedy? I goes, I want to get onto comedy. And he basically, in the middle of the show, halfway through the show, in the beginning, he goes, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. And I think I think he did. I think he tried to test me. Like, he wanted to see if I had the balls to actually go ahead with it. And I could feel it. I could feel there was a little alpha element to it. It was he looked me deep in the eyes and goes to me, I'm going to put you up. It was really like, I'm going to put you up in the middle of the show. What do you think about that? And he stopped, and my heart just hit the floor, and I started shaking. I started shaking, like literally trying to keep it together, and a bit of sweat just came, like it went ding, and it went around my face.
Yeah.
And I goes, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And my voice changed. And he goes, go to the bar. You got half an hour. I'm going to put you on. He goes, do 2 minutes, whatever. Anyway, long story short, introduced me on. I found my partner, swinging back alcohol. Like, I'm going to do this. Went on, and nobody knew I wasn't a comedian. And I did 7 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I walked out of there like I had just played the O2 and destroyed. Yeah. My confidence, I felt so happy and jubilant on the way home. I just couldn't. I was so happy. I was like, I've got to do stand-up. That was the impetus for me. And literally, I said, I've got to do this now. There's no doubt, but I have to do it. And then literally, I did Comedy Virgins the following week.
Oh yeah, we were there on Monday.
Yeah, I did that last week. That was my first gig outside of doing a course. So yeah, go on. Comedy Virgins, nice little.
And someone said to me, do Comedy Virgins. I went to Comedy Virgins, and bam, it done. It was. I went there, and I had a more of a structured set, and I've done well. It was real cool.
That sounds great. I guess what we're trying to home in on, you perhaps we misunderstood. You were saying before you kind of started kind of really going for it in January, you kind of did like a series of practicing for 2 months in some club. Was that no, sorry, go on.
I'm missing out. I'm missing out a key element here. All right. I'm just talking about my moment of doing it.
Yeah.
What I did, my partner got me a course for my birthday.
Oh yeah.
And I did a little course with trying to think of the guy, and I didn't want to do it. I said, I'm not going to do it. That's not stand up. All that nonsense. Yeah. You comedians go on stage.
Right.
And she put me on a course. What's his name? Chris Head.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of Chris Head?
I don't know that I have, actually. Joe?
Chris Head. Yeah, in Soho.
Okay.
And it was 10 weeks there. And I was like, I'm not doing this. And I went there and it was the best thing. It made me, gave me the confidence to say, okay, I'm in a room with people who want to be comedians, and it helped my energy. And I did that. And after 10 weeks and on that course, and that's within all of that, that's when I was like ready, but I weren't ready to go on stage. And then I went to that bar and then it all came together.
Fantastic.
And it was perfect. But yeah. Chris Head's course. Yeah.
Yeah, course. I mean, I've done two now. I did one. That's where I met Sam on the Markus Birdman one. And then, all went a bit quiet for me. I was like, it was middle of winter and I had other stuff going on. Then I did the Jeff Innocent one a couple of weeks ago. You know Jeff Innocent?
I met Jeff Innocent in Dalston.
Right.
I didn't know who he was. He goes, he's the UK champion or whatever. Is that the guy, Jeff Innocent? Is he the bald-headed guy?
Yeah.
Cockney kind of guy.
Exactly.
Up the
Brilliant
club is
Yeah, brilliant character, really great. And I've only seen 5 minutes of his stand-up, and he's just superb, brilliant. But yes, you did his course, did you?
Yeah, I did his course. Finished it 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow!
And it was one of those ones where we did the final showcase. I mean, great course. I mean, anyone listening, Jeff Innocent course, brilliant. Markus Birdman at Amused as well, brilliant. Two very different styles. I think that's probably why I wanted to do them. Maybe it was just destined to be that way, because obviously very different styles, very different areas. One like Southeast London, up the creek, established place, sort of reputation for being quite a hardcore place as well. There's an energy in there, right? So anyway, we did the course, 5 weeks, whatever, and then we do the showcase. But the people doing the showcase were very popular. So the place was absolutely heaving. And I don't know if there was people coming in off the street as well, but like just seeing people queuing up or thinking, what's that? Oh, it's a comedy club, it's $5. Not doing anything else for a couple of hours, I might come in. So it was basically the best part of 300 people in there. So it was like a packed kind of up the creek sort of night. And it felt like you say, you go and you feel like it's like you've just scored the goal at Wembley. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of up there and you're in just the act of even doing it. I mean, I couldn't even tell you if it went well or not. I mean, it wasn't, all I know is that I managed to get through the 5. I don't think I overran. I don't think, I think I got it done. I don't think I waffled too much. I mean, it was like, but to do it in front of that many folk, I was like, I can't believe I've just done that. Do you know what I mean? And you have that sort of sense of like, can never take that away from me now. Do you know what I mean? if I never do it again, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Because I've done it, But it gives you the impetus, do you know what I mean, to kind of keep going and have a run.
There is, goodness me, that crowd that you got there is great energy. I really wish I had that on my first. It was at a little bar but it was people. They said it was sold out, but it was just all the seats were gone. But it was just this little trendy bar. People were talking, eating. It was like a restaurant kind of vibe. And I was so elated that I'd done that. And I think every comedian, well, I don't know, sometimes people have really horrific times when they first perform. But I've watched a video of, I found a video because I record all my sets. I film every one of them. And I couldn't find that first performance. And I looked at it the other day and I'm like, I wanted to vomit. I literally oh God, this is so horrible. Yeah, I was looking at me, I was like so corny, just the way my being was. I was just overdoing everything, I can't believe I'm doing this. There was nothing there, but it was, I'm so glad I did it. It's such an amazing feeling. It is that, it's an amazing feeling.
It's a bit addictive. So you mentioned a couple of things. I've got an interest in this as well because my granddad was Nigerian, so I've got mixed background as well. So when you're talking about your background and you talk about the Bronx, and that's what I'm really thinking. Wow, how did you end up in the Bronx? What was that? What was happening there? And is that a kind of story you into?
the Bronx is New York, Bronx in the 80s. When I was a kid in London, in the UK, in the 80s, I was a breakdancer. So I was in breakdance at the very beginning of UK hip hop when it first came out. But I was like this little kid, as like 11 years of age, who hip hop came around at the right time for me. And then I ended up like breakdancing, body popping had just sort of come in. It hadn't come in anywhere. It never came in. It was just, we had pop music and little hip hop stuff would come in, but it was this underground hip hop scene. And to do breakdancing, I mean, back in the 80s, you saw somebody doing breakdancing. We had never seen it before. We were like young kids, and we saw kids that looked like us, like looked like me, like I looked Puerto Rican, like when I was a little kid with my little curly hair. And, Britain media and TV was very English, it's still English now, but it's starting to turn a corner after all these years. But when we were younger, there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. So when we saw hip hop come, we started seeing people doing creative dancing like that. And the culture was just beginning, and it was so inclusive. It was so such a great vibe that I was like just attracted to it as a kid. And it took me out of my communities, my rougher communities where there wasn't much opportunities. And I was going to like West End, like Covent Garden. I don't know if you know, like Covent Garden in the 80s was the hub of the foundation of London hip hop. And when I went down there, like coming out of the area, it was my first moment of being around creative, young working class kids of all colours, interested in being creative. Factory years, aren't you? There's no jobs, people are down. London's black and white, basically. Everything's just grim. Yeah. And I just go to Covent Garden, and then I've got breakdancing skills, and I end up, and I'm meeting graffiti artists, I'm meeting, body poppers, I'm meeting rappers, I'm meeting LA lockers, and it's just creatives, just creative people coming together at this organic moment of this stuff. And I got attracted to that, and that was the value of me. And then the mecca of all those things was New York, was the Bronx. It was like, people would love to go to America and New York. They want to go in nice little places and be like in Manhattan. My dream was to be in the Bronx, in the ghetto, where like, and everyone who was into breakdancing and them times, they'd want to be in the Bronx was the main place they wanted to go to. They want to go to Brooklyn and Bronx and those places, not Manhattan and New York, like Friends. They want to be in the Bronx. And that was my dream, is to go to America and be in the Bronx. And as time went on, a friend of mine, I played basketball, made friends with this guy, and he became a good close friend of mine. He moved out there, and I went out to go visit him, and I used to spend time with him. And I ended up being in the Bronx in the 80s, and then I learned how to do hip hop dancing, which is different from break dancing. It's street dancing, what you see today, everywhere. I was, and it sounds crazy, I was one of the first hip hop dancers in the UK of street dance. Wow. And I did music videos. When I came back from New York as a young kid, I did end up doing music videos, Top of the Pops, and going on tours and stuff like that. And then I went on tour with Bobby Brown. And that's how I was in New York. But being in New York was an amazing experience, and it changed my life. Being around all different types of people, and it gives me empathy as well of how we looked at people from the Bronx and New York as dangerous. And then when you get there, you're like, no, it's not dangerous. These are just people going to work. People have to live here. There's dangerous things, people over there, but this isn't a dangerous place. But where our media and our world was showing that was like these people were like animals, and it wasn't the case. And I started realizing that it's the first moment where I said, okay, I just, literally these are just people. And I learned so much being there as a young guy, coming out of my communities, and then And I always like to, be around different types of communities and not be scared of because of people's economical backgrounds or class or education. And it was very valuable for me, to be honest.
Wow, so was that your career then? Were you like a paid? Was it,
yeah,
I
was a dancer. Yeah. I danced for a group called the Cookie Crew. If you ever type like a thing called Got to Keep On, you'll see me in the middle. I'm much slimmer. I know it's hard to believe, but actually more attractive. All right. And I was just, just this kid who's just doing music videos, and it changed my life, changed the angle of my life.
I've seen the Cookie. I know the Cookie Crew, and I think I was traveling in Norfolk, and they had like this old Top of the Pops. So I think I may have seen you on TV relatively recently on one of the reruns. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is me, and I've got the high. I'm the guy in the middle with a big high top.
No way. Wow, man, we're in the presence of royalty here. This is 80s.
I know. I was expecting a couple of bringer gigs, and next to you, you're on Top of the Pops.
Yeah, the one when I was on Top of the Pops, I was on set with Kylie Minogue, Duran, and I've got a brilliant story. You got to hear it. I'll tell you the story. I was on, Kylie Minogue was with us all day, so I was spending it up with Duran. There was something with Duran, and it's on in the internet. They talk about it, about the famous Duran. You know Duran. You guys, yeah, I know you guys are not that young.
Simon Le Bon.
But Duran were in a room. They were next door in my in our BBC dressing rooms. And I came out. Someone goes, and there was smoke coming from their room, like pink smoke, colourful smoke, and there was a guy. I don't know if anyone's ever said it. There was a guy walking around naked in smoke, like walking in a circle. And I just visioned, I'm not kidding. I was like, what's going on? And then someone goes to me, that's Duran's dressing room. And it's very famous online. Like people talk about their weird goings in BBC, on Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, wow, okay, what's going on there? And all the smoke was coming out, but no one would say anything because, they're probably like stars or whatever. And then I saw Kylie Minogue, and then we would be like sitting next to Kylie Minogue and having lunch with her and stuff like that. And she was just like Australianly friendly, bubbly, cute thing. And lovely, really lovely, innocent. You could see she was innocent and happy about her life, which she should be because it would have been amazing. But then, before I went on to go on the stage, just that performance you saw me on, I'm standing on that side, all right, to get all the crowds there and Top of the Pops. And this man goes to me, I love your hair. He's dressed, a really handsome guy, actually. He had like this black shirt on. He goes, I love your hair. So I looked at him and I was like, okay, cool. And he started touching my hair, like touching the side of my hair, like, because it was a high top, which was my pride and joy. So I punched him in the face, and no, I didn't. I didn't actually do it. So he touches my hair, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I'm a working class kid. I'm not. We communicate differently back then, yeah. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm just saying, like your hair." And he had like a security guard with him. He was dressed in black. And I goes, yeah, all right, mate, cool. And I grab his arm and I goes, yeah, all right, don't touch me. Because I'm just saying, I just think it's lovely. It's just, and he's laughing, he's smiling. And he was quite nice, friendly about it. But I was like, no. So I went to the managers because this guy just touched my hair. You better go and touch my hair. To not touch my hair before we go on. Because I didn't want to say anything to him. And they can't. And I said, why? Because we can't. And our bosses at the time goes, I goes, why? And he goes, because that's Tom Jones. I didn't know who Tom Jones was. I'm a young guy. And I goes, who's Tom Jones? And they were like, he's very famous. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it's only years later, I'm like, oh my God, Tom Jones touched my hair. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it.
I guess he hadn't had the DNI training that is now required.
Yeah. Well, it was like a year, about 2 years later, I watched him they did a show on Tom Jones and he was singing and dancing. And I was like, this guy's amazing. Amazing. But he was like, no, people always used to talk to my hair and want to touch my hair when I was younger.
Man, that's the second Tom Jones story I've heard in 24 hours. Because I was at the fight last night. No mention of the result, of course. And obviously the national anthem came on. Yeah. And I was telling my mate that I was with, I was like, oh, you know, Tom Jones was sung the national anthem at the Ricky Hatton Floyd Mayweather fight in Vegas, and it was one of the best nights of my life. I was there. Tom Jones, you couldn't hear Tom Jones singing it because it was wild. It was like, you know, so many Brits in the crowd and stuff, right? But it was like it was a thing, right? Tom Jones, and he said I was in a restaurant and Tom Jones was really hitting on my wife. I was like, what? So I was like, literally, you know, Tom Jones has been a feature of the weekend. I mean, you never have thought.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, when we're saying it's like, anytime I always think about celebrities like Tom Jones, like wherever they go, somebody's got a story about them. So there's always probably something like right now, someone's saying, you know what, you know what happened? I was in IKEA, yeah? And I couldn't believe it. Tom Jones, he had security around. There's so many, you know, every time these people see these stories. But yeah, Tom Jones, what are you going to do? Great. And he was nice. It was lovely afterwards. Just a lovely guy.
Awesome. So, sorry, Sam, you've probably got, you know, I can go deeper into Bronx stories and so on, but I'm sure you've got some.
Oh, Bronx. Do you want to know about Bronx?
Sam's probably got a question.
Well, I guess the thing is, you're giving us, you're spoiling us, Eugene. This is the thing. You're giving us so much material. I mean, I've got my notebook out and I'm making notes of all of the different things to go off there in different directions. I guess just to shoehorn one question in, which is one of our popular ones. I remember you said earlier about how, you know, you started journaling, you had to get on Facebook and Instagram and so on. And I think it's a similar experience for myself. I had detox and I'm not on them at all. This year, I have to be all over the, yeah, like one of our common questions is like technology, you know, how is it affecting your life, your comedy? Are you feeling good about it? Are you cautious about it? How are you feeling about all this technology that is being forced upon you, or you're embracing it in a warm hug?
Well, technology, I mean, it's the world we live in, and it's become, you know, there's pros and cons as I think we are the first. You've heard everyone talks about it. We're the first guinea pigs to find out how it affects us. It's definitely going to change us as human beings, no doubt about it. It's changing us already. When it comes to comedy, okay, social media, I didn't say, as I said, I'm originally, like, my work is a graphic designer. So I did marketing and branding. And when Facebook came around, I was just really busy. I just had a lot going on. I was learning programs. I had clients that was just really stressful, and I couldn't fit and I just had a daughter, and I couldn't fit anything else in my life. So, and there was a lot of things coming out, like, oh my God, you've got to have a MySpace, Gmail's coming out, this thing called Gmail, and this account, and I've got to learn Flash animation, and I've got to learn Dreamweaver, and I've got to learn Photoshop. It just became too much. And I said, I'm not learning anymore. I don't want to know anymore. So when all these Facebook came out, I just couldn't. And then I just got busy looking after my kids, and I didn't join any form of social media. And I went through the whole thing without it. But I heard then Instagram came out and all of those YouTubes blowing up. And I was just YouTube, my email account, and YouTube, my email account, and then WhatsApp. But I didn't deal with any social media. And I heard the effects of how it's supposed to be unhealthy, but I literally was in the dark about it. I literally didn't even deal with it. And it was quite embarrassing as a graphic designer who's people's asking me about social media, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't touch it, which was weird. And my friends would say, how do you market yourself? And I'm like, just word of mouth. I talk to people. It's and so literally, when, for me as a stand-up comedian to get into it, like, it's all new to me, and it's literally in the last, say, 7-8 months, it's really impacted me. I started Instagram like 3 months ago, And I'm like, wow, okay. I'm finding I can see the addiction, how it pulls you in. I can just see how it pulls you in. And especially coming in from the outskirts of so many years and going into it, I can see it now. And how it's sort of making me a little bit, like elements of narcissism sort of coming into me. Like I'm like, oh God, I wonder if anybody likes my picture, or if anybody's put a thumb up, have they put a heart, love heart, like carried away with that kind of stuff. And I said, you know what, I've got to calm down of this. But as in what I think the comedy, I mean, comedians in the 90s, I think it's massively helpful, because comedians in the 90s, if they wanted to research a topic, I mean, how do you find out about, like, if I wanted to do a bit about NASA, I don't know anything about NASA. Right. I still now don't know anything about NASA, but if I had an idea, I'd have to go to the library and look, or someone say, I know a friend who knows a friend who knows about NASA inside out. And 5 weeks later, but now I can go and be a sort of an expert on NASA and come up with a creative bit. I can find out information about anything, and it just helps me find solutions to jokes. So it's imperative to have it. I mean, you know, it really is. But at the same time, because of the entertainment and because of it's so amazing, we digress. And as a comedian, and a lot of comedians, I need to be my own thoughts, and I need to be thinking about the only time I come up with my ideas and my jokes is when I move away from technology, and that's when the ideas come. So I need technology, but I have to parent myself to stay away from it. Like I'll be like, oh great, idea, but I never explore the ideas because I'm still another idea. But when the ideas come is when I move away from it.
That's really great to hear. You mentioned some of the positive things about it, particularly in, like you're saying, the research. There's all these different things that we can do. Like I was in Facebook and Instagram at the beginning. I'd like detoxed for like 5 years because I got, and then exactly this year I'm in, and the addiction, and I'm like on the phone. I'm like, oh, like exactly the things you're saying with this, and I'm kind of just the last few weeks. I'm kind of trying to pull back and saying, okay, I'm not going to check Instagram every 30 minutes. You know, it's it's absolutely crazy. Yeah, but to following on from that, then you're doing the research. We also talking about you're videoing all your sets. I think that's another thing that's become much easier, is to record yourself in like high fidelity and so on. And how often a week? How many times a week are you getting out and actually gigging at the moment?
I perform. I mean, I'm literally taking up since I've won the NATYs, the New Act of the Year award. I've been getting out. I mean, I've literally thrown everything into comedy since January. Like everything. Like I'm creatively writing, getting comfortable on stage, understanding my voice, filming myself, really being what's the word? Methodical, is that the word?
Methodical, analytical. Are you doing it full time now then? Is that
well, it would appear I've been living off my savings that I have. And I tell you what, £5 doesn't go that far away. But no, I literally have been really just throwing myself into it, because what it is, years of years people telling me to do stand-up and I didn't do it. And so now as I get older, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really do this. And I've been getting good feedback from clubs and doing really well, if I may say so. And then this natty stuff coming, I didn't know much about it, and it sort of someone told me about it, and then I ended up getting into it, and it was out of I don't know if it was like 400 comedians, and then it got narrowed down, and then I got through, and then it's
fantastic. I mean, I think and the sets of views that we've seen, you're nailing it. But I'm just wondering, obviously you've got like a family and kids. I'm wondering how many times a week, because I think that's, for Joe and myself, we're all older gentlemen here who've got responsibilities besides this, that, and the other. I'm just wondering, because people like things like Gary Delaney says, like, do three times a week to maintain your level, do 5 to improve. I mean, are you managing to get out more nights than not, or just how much performing are you doing?
Well, my kids, I mean, the level of neglect is off the chain now. Telling you, my kids, I mean, they don't even know me anymore. I mean, you know what I mean? The whole social services, I'm trying to duck them, you know what I mean? It's really uncomfortable, but I'm out here. Well, last month I did 17 gigs.
Right.
So like every 2 days, a gig. And the thing is, I've only, because I'm trying to do as many places as possible, because I want to find out what are the good clubs and what are the ones that are going to waste my time, because it's very tiring, as you know. It's also very expensive as well. And I'm trying to, because I'm new to the circuit, trying to get around, meet people, and literally find out, don't go there, do this, do that, and have all the experiences, and then literally then start choosing where I really want to go. But as saying that, I've also calculatedly not done like some of the, like Vauxhall I've not done like some of the main places like Vauxhall, Top Secret, gong shows. I've done no gong shows, Comedy Store, all these like really like, oh, you've got to do these places. And I've done it specifically because they're really, apparently, like, you've got a lot of good comedians there apparently on another level. I could be wrong, right? But so I'd rather come there when I'm prepared. So I can have an impact instead of going there, doing okay, and then coming back again. I'd rather come with impact. And since I've won the NATYs, it just gives me some leverage, and I could go there and perform. I think my acts come together at a nice level now, and my performance is at a nice level. I could go there and make some form of impression. You know?
So I've been burning to ask this question about. So when you're kind of writing, what sort of subject matter is your kind of area that you focus on? Is it, can it be random? Do you have a kind of theme? Do you have like, you know, a kind of a story that you want to tell? Is it, you know, how do you kind of structure your material?
Well, it's really strange.
What's landing well? What's going well for you?
Well, do you know what? It's literally, I mean, I've always been a person who loves to tell stories. So I love to tell stories. I found that telling stories socially, people gravitate to stories. And it's been a thing where no matter where I've been in life socially, if you tell really interesting stories that are boring, because I get really bored around people. Not saying everyone's boring, but sometimes people can be boring. Like, I can't deal with conversations like when people just talk about, oh, my love extension, and do you know what, it's crazy. They said they were going to finish in October. My kitchen's all in it. It's just, I'm like, oh, that's really nice. I've heard this story before, and I just get bored. So I realized when I was younger to tell stories are a thing where at a dinner table you can lighten up the room and you can have fun and people enjoy it. And so I've always told stories. And then, but I'm also very political. Like my father was a political person into politics, being, you know, coming from the Caribbean and dealing with racism in the UK. And he used to go for marches and take me as a kid. And so my comedy at the moment is, I want to try to do comedy which means something a little bit, that has a little left turn and make people go, that's a bit edgy, but there's something there. So I might talk about like wealth gap. I might talk about racism. But these are topics that are really hard to really communicate with people. But I try to present it in a way where you don't look at me and go, oh, what's his problem? You know? But they also learn something from it. You know, that's what's happening at the moment. I've started to move into, I did a bit on mental health, a little bit on mental health, which I love this bit. It's, you know, when you get that little bit, you know, oh, that's working really well. Bit on mental health. a little bit on, oh gosh, COVID, my first time, bit late, but I'm just got my first 2 COVID jokes, which are doing okay. But yeah, you know, I'm trying to get to the point, like, I write about the things that mean a lot to me, but now I'm trying to move away from it and trying to talk about things like, I was going to say family, like family don't mean a lot to me, but about my children, about everyday life, about the media, what's actually happening now, like topics that, but I'm trying to find different ways of looking at it. So I'm embarking, but right now my stuff is quite political, quite about wealth gap, gentrification, a little bit about relationships, a little bit about COVID. It's just a mixture of stuff, and I'm trying to widen my scale about different things.
I mean, I have a similar background in some ways. That I say my granddad was Nigerian, and my mother was very, very heavily political. Like she married sort of the guy who was the right-hand man to one of the Black Panthers. So like he's an African American. So like I'm you know, I say because I obviously I look white, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we're a bit red today, maybe, but I kind of position it like I've got kind of backstage pass because on one hand I get all the privileges, but at the same time as I've got access into kind of almost African political royalty. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of kind of Panthers and Stokely Carmichael, who then became Kwame Ture, and you know,
Kwame Ture,
I've kind of connected into that whole scene as well through family, and I did the marches too. You know, so that's a kind of big motivating part of why I'm doing it as well, because like you say, those conversations about fucking extensions and all, you know, kids chat. Do you know what I mean? It's just like fucking kill you. It just does you in. So it's like, you know, if I can do 5 minutes on, you know, I'm a quadroon, right? I've sort of re-energized that word in my own mind anyway. Quadroon being a quarter, you know, black. That's how I would have been categorized back in the day. You know, read the literature. I would have been a slave. Do you know what I mean? Like my children would have been slaves as well, because of my categorization. So I've kind of like, you know, notion of being a quadroon and you know, and then talking for psychedelics, and psychedelics is an opportunity to kind of heal, you know, physical injuries, opportunity to heal kind of psychological injuries, obviously handle with care, you know, don't kind of go off the deep end into a kind of psychedelic drugs experience if you don't know what you're doing. But so if I can do 5 minutes, and I'm still at the 5 minute stage, right? If I can do 5 minutes on that gives me such a boost, because it's like what I want to be talking about, and hopefully trying to bring it to some sort of light, you know, life, you know, on a stage and connect with people. And obviously it's early days, and I've done a handful of gigs, but I've kind of done it now. I feel like I've kind of broken the seal a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I feel like I've kind of popped through into that thing, and I can actually say I'm doing it. You know, did Virgins, which I loved it. It was really good.
So how many have you done, if I may ask?
Oh, it's a handful. I mean, literally a handful.
A handful. Well,
Yeah.
it's amazing feeling, isn't it? And what it is like you've got such an interesting background. You know, I'm mixed race as well. My dad's from St. Lucia, and my mother was from Scotland, from Greenock.
Right.
So, but an Irish background. Basically an Irish family in Scotland, you know. So it's the first time in my life, like my mixed raceness has been really valuable, like really valuable, as in I can literally talk about anything I want to at a wider spectrum, because when I speak to some, like, you know, black comedians, they're scared to talk about race or touch about the hypocrisies about what's going on in the world, because but for me, I feel like I can talk about it because I'm as black as I am white as I am. So I don't shy away from it. But as I said, I'm not out. My aim is not to make people uncomfortable at all, just to make people think about things and flip things around, you know, but in a fun way, you know. Yeah, I think I'd say to you, just really embrace your uniqueness of your background and if you can bring that through. And also those type of things is, you're saying Stokely Carmichael and oh man is the legend. Your perspective of the world is very different. So I think you should embrace that. And but at time, when you get to that time, you'll know when you want to take that step and say, I think I can introduce these things. Yeah. And you'll find a specialness in it.
Yeah, that's it. It feels like, to me anyway, like there's a lot of people who are presenting things as problems, right? You just pick the paper up and it's like crisis here, crisis that. And I'm not downplaying the fact that there are massive issues that we face as humanity faces huge issues, but I don't hear that many solutions. You know what I mean? Certainly not in the you know, some of the stuff that I'm reading. Maybe there's tons of people doing brilliant work, coming up with loads of, you know, innovations to try and make things better. But it feels like, you know, I think comedy can be a kind of a healing thing. I think comedy can be a way to, like you say, a way to connect with people at a kind of a deeper level, to kind of make, you know, bring things out, to bring things forward, and, you know, and have those kind of discussions. And me and Sam chat about this now and again about, you know, the limits to comedy, right? So you take that recent issue with like Jimmy Carr around the gypsy thing. Did you hear about the, you know, the kind of controversy around that, the joke he made in his latest show?
Jimmy Carr?
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear about it. Of course I heard. Where have I been? I'm like, are you in a comedy game?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I've heard about Jimmy Carr. What was you saying about it?
So what I'm just saying, what's your view on kind of, you know, the limits of comedy? You know, like, you know, the people that take it to those kind of outer edges, you know, some of the Frankie Ball stuff, you know, the Jimmy Carr stuff. Then you've got obviously Bernard Manning from back in the day. Then you've got Chubby Browns, and you've got things like that. So what's your kind of view on the limits to these things?
Well, comedy right now, look, I'm progressive. I want people to be progressive. I want people to treat people nice. Yeah, we all want that. If you don't, you're strange. All right. But at the same time, I just think comedy is art, and I think it should be left alone to certain degrees. Like, I grew up in a time where you had, you know, Burning Manning, and you had openly racist, homophobic comedians on TV, prime time, you know, and growing up in that world in the UK. I mean, listen, entertainment back in the 80s was a show called the Black and White Minstrel Show. I don't know if you remember it. I don't know if you've heard of it. That was Anton Deck. Yeah, that was Anton Deck of its time, you know. Yeah. And we're not far from that. And then we had like a sea full of racist comedians and everything. It was crazy. I mean, and growing up as minorities, when we used to see those northern, like, sort of racist comedians, we used to be like, wow. But we knew what the terrain was, because that's what the terrain was. So no one was shocked. We weren't shocked, and it was part of culture and TV and entertainment. Now we've progressed to a point where I think we are at a stage where, and listen, Burning Manning, right? Horrific, horrible, right? But as a comedian, some of the stuff was really well put together. Like, racism is terrible, right? But sometimes I can't pretend that it's like, wow, the writing was just unbelievable, but it was just repulsive. And it's very hard in this day to go, you know, and who's banging the drum up, bring back, you know, Burning Manning comedy. Nobody wants that. But at the same time, like, I just think the world we're living in right now, I think we've evolved from the 80s. We are at a point where we know what is racist. Yeah, we know. Comedy is an art form. It's an art form. It should be left alone. It's free speech. We need to, you know, I don't like horror movies. I hate horror movies. So I don't watch horror movies. But I don't say we need to stop horror movies. Do you understand? It's like, it's art. It's people find it entertaining, and I just think comedy is offensive at times, but we laugh at so many different things, and sometimes we've got to be careful of what level of offense that, you know, people got brittle spirits. People are really soft, and also, you know, but at the same time, I don't want people to feel attacked, you know, at the same time. But I just think there's nuance in it all. But I just think it's an art. Comedy is an art form. And, you know, I think we know when someone is being really vile racist when it comes to human. There's times where you've been in comedy clubs where someone said paedophile jokes. Let's not pretend you've been into sitting down and someone said a paedophile joke and we're all like, ooh, that's terrible. Yeah? But then sometimes someone said a paedophile joke and you go, oh, it's terrible, but it's really creative and you can understand what they're talking about, you know? So there's nuance with everything. You could do a not homophobic joke, but you could do a gay joke, you could do a joke on race, you could do a joke on all these things. And I think when you make it land and make it, you know, interesting, where we're educated about something, then why stop that, you know?
No, I definitely agree. I think there's I don't believe in censorship. I mean, obviously there's, you know, you do your research, you find out what the kind of person's going to be like, hopefully, and then you don't go. But yeah, I don't buy into this sort of censorship piece. I think without, you know, if you try and kind of keep lids on things, you know, that it's just going to pop out somewhere else. You know what I mean? It's just like you got to let it off the whole Pandora's box, if you like. You know, kind of, and that kind of ties into sort of my interest in sort of psychedelic medicines, having sat with you know, indigenous cultures who've used these plant medicines. You know, for example, ayahuasca. You might have heard of it. It's a vine that grows in the Amazon, and then, you know, there's another. You know, you take that vine and you brew it up with another leaf, and it's a that in itself is a profession. You know, you have people who are specifically skilled and trained in lineage. It's handed down generation to generation often. And, you know, you boil up this brew and it's a sacred brew, a sacred tea. It's drunk, and it can induce visions, but it's part of a kind of a spiritual and you know, sort of belief system. And, you know, and you can open up into kind of vast realms of experience hitherto maybe unexplored, shall we say. You know, not that they can't be accessed through other means. You know, you might have seen Wim Hof on the thing diving into ice water. You might have heard people sitting in proper darkness, not just like a little bit dark, but actual 360 darkness for an extended period of time can induce that kind of visionary state, and just kind of opens up the kind of the world without trying to sound too kind of like, you know, sort of, you know, trippy about it, but it opens up a kind of a whole new way of looking at the world. And comedy to me is very much like that. You know, it's on the line between the kind of, you know, the immediate experience we have here, the day-to-day stuff, and a realm of possibilities that are kind of, you know, infinite to an you know, to
no, absolutely. I mean, comedy explores it explores so many different things. And listen, movies are offensive. You know, movies can be offensive. I mean, there's people getting murdered in movies, and there's people getting raped in movies. You know, comedy is the same type of art form as it's. I just think. Okay, sorry to digress. Jimmy Carr's situation. What was the title of it? It was called The Dark.
The section that he had, it was like
Dark Material.
Something like that. His Dark Material.
Potentially career-ending jokes. He introduced the jokes as potentially career-ending. Okay,
so right there, I mean, it's not like that's not the title and that's not the goal. We know we're going to go there. We're going to go, it's going to get really dark. Yeah, it's going to get dark. Just there, you get to it and you go, okay, this is going to be dark. This is going to be offensive. This is what you're signing up for. This is what you're signing. It's there in writing. This is what you're going to do. Don't click it. Don't watch it. If you know, it's going to be really bad. But I just naturally, I remember the joke roughly. It was horrific. The joke, it was really bad. But when you're being creative, especially in comedy, we try to explore everything. We try to go, where can I find the most creative idea where it's done now? It's really hard. It's really hard subject.
So have you got any like, you know, what's your kind of darkest twist? Or is it something you could, you know, any insight into that?
What's in my joke?
Yeah.
Oh goodness me! I've got a joke. I've got. All right, yeah. All right. I can't give you the punchline, but I've got a joke where the audience, and it's the first time I've ever had a joke where the audience go, ooh, like they don't laugh, but they go, ooh, oh, but the whole room goes, ooh, oh, but they also giggle at the same time. And the first time I did it, I was like, I've always wanted one. And I tell the audience, I've always wanted one of those, yeah? Because it's so dark, but what it is it's not actually dark. I really would love to tell you, but I can't because it's such a valuable bit. When I say it's about someone getting killed, right? But I actually don't say anything. If you really break it down, I don't. It's just what happens in the people's mind when they hear it. They just hear the person's name, and that's all they hear is the person's name, and they just go, "Ooh, oh." But the first time I had that, and it was a little giggle, but I was like, "Oh, finally, I've got one of those."
It's a really interesting area. I mean, what's interesting that you're saying there about Jimmy Carr, like, you know, he's framed it like this. Of course, to connect back with the social media thing we're talking about, is lots of people are not watching it, but then lots of people are immediately taking it out of context, and they're almost like sharing it with other people in order to get, and then like conservative politicians saying, well, maybe we need to, like, you know, restrict Netflix on what they can show. But it comes back to this the fundamental thing of free speech, right? I think we all of us here, we're doing a podcast, we believe we're in free speech, right? That the challenge is to free speech is always, are you free to scream fire in a crowded theater? There's certain situations, and that's like an artificial one, where saying something at the wrong point can lead quite directly to something quite unpleasant. And this is the difficulty now with the you know, technology and the internet and the sharing of everything, is almost anything that you say can almost immediately be taken out of context, and then, you know, I think it makes it difficult. I mean, I fundamentally agree, but the devil's advocate position, right, is, are there some areas that should be off limits because we now all have this burden of things being taken out of context? Is that, I mean, that would be the question, is, you know, should the comedian be like not censoring themselves, but like thinking, if I say this, it could be taken out of context in that way? Or maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should never be doing that.
No, I don't think they should do that. I think we're all adults. I think we understand that we really know when it's, look, back in the days, sorry to digress, but back in the days when you had racist comedians that were open TV, we knew that they were racist. Like, we were like, no, that's racist. Yeah. Now, when somebody says something in a sort of creative way, you look and you go, I know they're not racist, but they've said something creative, bordering along racism. But it's like, it makes us like, let's have this conversation. You know, it sort of opens up a dialogue about different things. But I just don't think comedians should be, I mean, should they? Jimmy Carr is an edgy kind of comedian, and you sort of sign up to that when you. I just think sometimes this is what I think. We worry about people's feelings, right? So we don't want people to be hurt, yeah, because being hurt is not nice, right? We don't want to hurt people, right? A lot of people, and I'm not just saying this, like breaking the glass, people that are very hurt about these things that some of these comedians say, usually, and if I make just my observation, usually come from really secure backgrounds. Yeah, life is a little bit more secure for them, and somebody saying bad words gets them hurt. But like, so we're trying to create a society where people are not hurt, but wealth gap and poverty, yeah, hurts people really hard, yeah. So we ignore. So I was at a dinner the other day, and two lovely ladies were talking to me, and they said, "Oh, you're a comedian," and they said they hate Dave Chappelle because he's homophobic, and I was like, you know, same type of conversation. It was really like, you've got to be eggshells. I'm like, you know, you've got to look at the context of what Dave Chappelle said. And she goes, "Oh, I did like him, but I didn't." But so you laughed at so many other jokes that he said, but you didn't like that bit. But there's some of the jokes you laughed at could have offended a lot of other people. And when I see like, and what I said, they were part of the LGBT community, and I said, I think, you know, Dave Chappelle is not a horrible person, not racist, but he's bringing up nuance about society, race, LGBT, because you know, I know a lot of gay comedians who say some cutting edge stuff. There's gay clubs, and they have to be creative themselves and write comedy and stuff, and they have to tread the line as well. And I've heard comedians say stuff about Muslims, gay comedians say something about Muslims and about Christians, and you're offending Christians and you're offending Muslims, but they say it and it's offensive. They're not worried about people's feelings. So, you know, but I would say give them the freedom to say what they want to say, so we can have this conversation.
No, I think I kind of fundamentally agree with you, particularly what you're saying about the you know, people's hurt feelings. There's a lot of people being hurt on behalf of other people, or this and the other, which I don't think we've got any more time for. I think the thing more that I would be concerned about is, you know, sometimes are you creating a meme, not that's just going to hurt some people's feelings, that people are going to take that zeitgeist and act on it and do, you know, really unpleasant things. I mean, I guess it's like, for example, if you think about, like, Putin's not a comedian, although, but, you know, he's peddling this meme of, you know, denazifying Ukraine, which to us sounds insane. I mean, in their world, and I guess, you know, there's a big battle in the world of different ideas, if you know what I mean. And so I mean, you know, I'm kind of twisting myself in knots to be the devil's advocate, but that's I'm trying to wonder, is there, I'll just a little example. I heard this news story which is about like, it's basically a grooming through online gaming, and a young boy was killed in Essex, and like the local schools here, there's like a charity to, you know, kind of like make people aware of the dangers of this online gaming thing, what have you. And it's a disgusting story, and just like for anybody with kids, you're like, you recoil from it, right? But I'm spending all my spare waking moments thinking about comedy. I came up with a joke about it that I'm like, oh my God, that made me laugh, but that's really, I don't think I could ever say that, just for fear of it being taken out of context. You know what I mean? And it's just that I'm in this world at the moment, as I'm exploring every element of comedy and thinking, you know, I may censor myself occasionally, but I guess every time we choose to not say a joke because we think it's not funny enough, that's a kind of self-censorship, isn't it?
I think Matt, what your point is about, you know, you talked about art earlier on. Obviously, art, very difficult thing to define. But I think that really is what, for me, that's what it boils down to. If someone's actually sat down as part of a creative process to think, how do I structure this? How do I make it funny? How do I put these words together in order to make an impact, a humorous impact? That's a very different thing from just saying something shitty. Do you know what I mean? And that, you know, which is just a kind of a rant, for example, you know, or like, you know, if you're talking about art, you know, from, you know, in terms of kind of, you know, drawing, painting, if someone's actually sat and conceived, and rather than just like, you know, randomly, you know, chuck something at the wall, that can be art too. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's the slippery bit, is that, you know, one is art, one is not, to me. I think it's probably the way I do it. You know, the simplistic way that I would kind of distill that question.
I had a show about 2 weeks ago. I was headlining, and a comedian, I'm going to say his name, but he came on and did a rape joke about and I'm not going to say because it's quite a horrific joke. And I went to a club and I saw him make this joke, do this joke, and the crowd were like, oh, it's horrific. It wasn't smart, it wasn't intelligent, it was nothing, it was just grim. And it was his demeanor, his vibe was like, oh, he wanted to shock the crowd. Yeah. And I think you could see, oh, you're just trying to shock value, you know? And then I was performing and he was on the same bill. Lovely guy, nice guy, young guy. But he came out with a shock value kind of joke about rape. The same joke. And the same thing happened. And I was like, oof. Then the next, coming up with another joke about rape. Like, you didn't go, you know what? This rape thing, that didn't work. Let me stay away from rape. He's gone, you know what I'm gonna double down. Like, oh, maybe that rape joke never worked. Let me go with another one. Yeah? So he comes out with another rape joke, which is just so bad, where the DJ just hit a little, like some noise, like this got stopped. The audience was like, oh, horrified. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, that is, like, if you can't figure that out, that's just not acceptable. Nobody's listening to those two jokes and going, rape, that's not so bad. Yeah, we're disgusted by it. It's so disgusting. Yeah, but and I could tell. I saw him afterwards, and he created a horrible atmosphere. I mean, it was a horrible night after that. It was really, literally. I mean, it's a long story, but he literally, I could see he was reflecting on himself and thinking that wasn't working. And you get some comedians who try to want to be edgy and shocky and cutting edge. And I think we can see when they're trying to be false, I'm an edgy, wild comedian, I say wild things. And you can see the mechanics of somebody trying to be edgy. And the audience are not that, you can see it. And when somebody says something edgy or something that could be potentially offensive, that we can see and go, oh, we see what they're trying to say there, or it worked. But it's a hard thing to do creatively, to say something edgy, but that make you reflect. I don't know, it's really hard. It's really hard to do. And I don't want to offend anybody or get it. I mean, I stay away from, I would never do a rape joke, you know? I would never do a rape joke. But there might be a rape joke that
you may find it may pop in at some point, because like I think, as we both are, we're thinking about comedy all the time. One may pop into your head at some point. It's absolutely.
Where I really want to hear this bit now. So what's your kind of schedule looking like? I know Sam will probably post it on the notes and stuff, but I'm interested in your schedule. What have you got coming up?
Yeah, where can people see you? That's what
I'm performing at the NATYs awards, where they're giving me award show. The NATYs, by the way, there's 12 winners. So it's the 12, I'm part of the 12 winners that have won, and we're doing a showcase. So it's going to be at the Bernie Grant Center on the 7th of May. And that's 7th of May. I'm going to be, looking at my calendar, I'm going to be at Camden Comedy in Your Eye on the 4th of May. That's a good place to catch me, actually, because I'm good. I'll probably be doing that bit there as well. I'm going to be, oh gosh.
Is Bernie Grant in? Is that Tottenham? Sorry.
What's that? Comedy in Your Eye?
No, Bernie Grant. Is that
Bernie Grant is in Tottenham, absolutely. That's where the showcase is.
Right.
Tickets are on sale for that one. £15 ticket. That's going to be probably going to get sold out. So if you want to go there, and that night is going to be exceptional, because you're getting the best comedians of what's going on the lower zone. But all the acts are really good. So to get through that, after getting through hundreds of comedians, for us to win that, it's a brilliant showcase. Brilliant showcase.
Yeah, well, we'll get the links to all of these things
Sure.
You know, and there is so much more that we could talk about. As usual, we've only got through half the questions. I hope we can have you back on the show when you've won your next major award. I just think, is there anything else that you want to promote apart from the shows that you're doing? Like people could follow you on Instagram. Is it the best place to keep up with what's going on with you?
Well, my name is Eugene Dusauzay. Yeah, I'm sure you'll have all the links in the script. Catch me, it's Eugene Dusauzay on Facebook and Instagram. You catch me, I'm on the circuit. I'm trying to move up. I'm going to be looking to get to Vauxhall, thingy, Top Secret, Backyard, all those places this summer. So look out for me. I'm at the Natty Awards, as I said, the 7th of May. Come down to Comedy in Your Eye in Camden on the 4th of May, where I'm headlining, and that's it.
Fantastic.
Can't wait, man. Really looking forward to it.
Oh man, I'd love to see. We'll have a drink.
Yeah, mate. Really looking forward to that.
Big shout.
Great chat. And as I said, hours more to chat, but we'll maybe do that.
Oh, we've got a lot more to get over, believe me.
We'll wrap it up for this show. It was a big shout out, Comedy in Your Eye. That's what I had my first gig. So yeah, love those guys.
Yeah, I love the guys.
Dom and I forgot, my brain's going now. But anyway, yeah, we'll put a link to them in the show notes. But yeah, so thanks everyone. Remember, listeners, you can help support the show by going to patreon.com comedians on, where any level of support will get you access to our Slack community for text chats with us and the guests, and higher levels will get you access to bonus features like outtakes and all those sorts of things that you discover it all. But we'll look forward to seeing you on Comedians on Technology, People and Drugs very soon again. Thanks so much to Eugene for our show today.
Take care, guys.
Cheers, man.
It's been a pleasure.